Good evening and good morning. Thank you for spending this time with us, wherever you are. My name is Marita Grutson, and it's my pleasure to introduce the moderator for our panel, Some Effective Strategies for Addressing Climate Change. And she will manage the panel and the rest of the 2 hours. Paz Artaza Regan has worked at Catholic Climate Covenant since the fall of 2015. There she oversees the work of the Creation Care Teams Network, the coordination of the Laudato Si Action Plan here in the United States, the Interdiocesan Creation Care Network, and the development of educational materials, such as for Earth Day and the Feast of St. Francis programs, as well as the Covenant's monthly webinars. Quite a bit, I would say. She began her career in the Environmental Justice Office of the United Methodist Church. And let me see here. And she has also worked for the National Council of Churches of Christ Eco Justice Working Group. She's worked for the Montgomery County, Maryland Public Schools, as well as Physicians for Social Responsibility and the National Religious Campaign Against Torture. Paz has a BA in International Relations from George Washington University, a master's degree in International Development from American University, and has completed the coursework for a master's degree in Community and Regional Planning from the University of British Columbia. She is originally from Santiago, Chile. Take it away, Paz.
Thank you, Marita, and for the extensive introduction of almost my entire resume. So thank you. I want to welcome everyone. And once again, thank Marita and also Global Ministries University for scheduling this important event and for the generous invitation to be part of this fantastic panel discussion on effective strategies to address climate change, which is a topic that I believe might be one of the most defining issues of our time. The impacts of climate change are global in scope and unprecedented in scale. And how we deal with this issue that is global, intersectoral, intergenerational, and which most likely will impact every living thing on this planet is one of the most key and consequential questions that we must answer. Before we get started, I'd like to ask you if you have questions and comments to the panelists, that you get them into the questions in the box there. And if you have any panelists that question goes to, do let us know who you would like that question to be answered by, or if you're sending it to the entire panel, that is also a good information to know. We will first have every panelist speak. We will then have a little bit of a discussion time between the panelists, and then we will open it up to the questions. I'm honored to be here today with these wonderful panelists who are going to be sharing their wisdom and expertise on issues that is being framed as just effective strategies. But I am going to say that within all of these presentations, even just by the titles, I knew that they were hopeful strategies. And as someone who frames the issues of climate change within a faith and moral perspective, I'm always looking for ways to present more than the dire news about climate change, of which there's plenty, but also to present the encouraging and inspirational actions that so many people around the world are pursuing. Our 5 panelists excel at creating and implementing effective strategies, but most importantly, each of them is creating and sharing hope. And for that, I'm immensely thankful for each one of them. Let's get started. I'm going to introduce each panelist individually and then invite them to begin their presentations. Each of the first 3 presenters will have 20 minutes, and then our last 2 presenters will share in the final 20 minutes. So first, I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Harry R. Moody, Rick as he goes, who is visiting faculty at Fielding Graduate University. His topic today is Climate Change in an Aging Society, Strategies for Hope. Thank you, Dr. Moody, for centering your presentation on hope. Please take it away here.
Unmute myself. Our challenge, by the way, is going to be to unmute the voices that we are not yet hearing. And I know my fellow panelists are going to do that. I'm going to sum up my message very simply, and that's by saying that the great religions are all telling us the same thing about the climate crisis that we're experiencing today. We're just not getting the message. Did you get the memo? The earth is the Lord's, and all that is in it, says the Psalms. Rabbi Abraham Heschel put it another way: in a free society, only some are guilty, but all are responsible. The Holy Quran warns against corruption of the earth, and I'm quoting, "Corruption has spread on land and sea as a result of what people's hands have done, that Allah may make them taste a part of what they have done so that they may return to the right path." That's the message of climate change, which is also a message, or ayat, as it's said in Arabic, from God. And last, the true Christian voice is from Pope Francis. Fratelli tutti, we are all brothers and sisters. And Catherine Hayhoe, an evangelical Christian who is also the chief scientist of the Nature Conservancy. We do not need to look far to find hope. We need to act on it. Hope is one of the 3 cardinal virtues: faith, hope, and charity. But environmentalist David Orr put it best when he said, hope is a verb with its sleeves rolled up. Hope is a verb with its sleeves rolled up. Today, we're going to hear messages from different voices, but ultimately they're all saying the same thing. We're going to hear from Kayla Jacobs about Fratelli Tutti and Laudati Si for Generation Z, and she will tell a story about youth mobilization. I'm not a youth, I'm an elder. I turned 78 this month, but we need to hear those voices. They can't be muted. They can't be muted. They must not be muted, of youth mobilization. We're going to hear, and I hope he comes on time, from No Abdullah Benfoya, who's director of Hope for a better future in the Cameroons. And we'll hear about women and climate change. Hope. I often confront people who have, here, welcome, No. Salam alaikum to you.
Yeah, hello. It's good evening from Cameroon.
From where you are, we're all in different times, but we're all on one globe. Thanks very much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
I've said only by way of introduction, but I want to say what is my crucial question, which is what causes people to lose hope, because they say, well, what can one person do? And this is the problem that immobilizes us. Feeling it's too late, it'll never happen. What can one person do? It's a kind of learned helplessness. We've heard about Greta Thunberg, the young woman from Sweden. Now we need to hear about an eco-elder. And I have in mind Yakuba Sawadogo, who's my age, is exactly my age, 77, 78. He won the prestigious Right Livelihood Award for turning barren land in Burkina Faso into a thriving forest. He demonstrated how farmers can regenerate the soil with indigenous and local knowledge. And when he received the Right Livelihood Prize, Sawadogo said, and I'm quoting, "I don't want to eat today and leave future generations with nothing to eat." This is the challenge of legacy work. You know, years ago, I was with a dear friend of mine, Reb Zalman Schachter, who wrote a book called From Aging to Saging. And we were in a restaurant, and Reb Zalman said to me, "You know, this environmental stuff is really very simple." He said, "The only question is, are you saved?" And I said, "Well, he's a rabbi. Is this a theological?" He says, no, I don't mean it in a religious sense. I mean it in a computer sense. Are you saved? Have you downloaded your life experience for future generations? Are you doing your legacy work? Well, Jacobo Sabadogo is doing his legacy work. Are we doing ours? We're going to hear from Celine Woznicka about the environmental and social challenges of today. I noticed that Celine Woznicka was educated in Chicago, an American city, which endured a heat wave in 1995 that killed over 700 people, mostly old people who didn't have air conditioners. Climate differs in every part of the world. The place where I'm sitting right now, I'll turn my camera so you can see it. Beautiful. Those trees are shielding me from the parking lot. I don't have air conditioning because I live in a place that has a Mediterranean climate, San Mateo. Never gets too hot, never gets too cold. I'm lucky. I also live in a place where I experienced atmospheric floods that nearly swamped our car on New Year's Eve. And where when we moved here 2 years ago, when we arrived here that day in 2020, my daughter, who lives nearby, that's why we moved, was taking our little granddaughter, then age 4, to nursery school. In the middle of the day, the sky was covered with smoke, so dark you couldn't see anything. And the little girl looked up her mom and said, "Mommy, why are we going to school at night?" This is the reality of climate. It's here, it's now. And my book, which I'm working on, and newsletter, can be summed up in 4 words: here, now, you, hope. Hope is the last word. We're going to hear from Marilyn Cott, who speaks from a Roman Catholic perspective, but she also embodies a Jewish saying from the Talmud, where it said, "If I am not for myself, who will be? If I am only for myself, what am I? If not now, when?" And from the book of Matthew, where Jesus says, "Truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." My message of hope is summed up in 3 S's. I'm making it very simple. I want everybody to understand this and remember it, okay? Solidarity, sustainability, stewardship. What is solidarity? We begin with the scripture, with the great commandment, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind." This is the first and great commandment. And the second, says Matthew, is like unto it. "Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself." This is solidarity. You know, I used to work for AARP. I was the vice president for academic affairs. I'm now retired. That's what retired people say. I used to be blah, blah, blah. Well, I had the great good fortune to introduce Jane Goodall, the great protection of the environment lady from Africa. She was the keynote speaker at an AARP member event attended by 25,000 people. So I got to meet Jane Goodall. And at that event, she was then 77 years old. She called upon AARP members to take responsibility for protecting our planet for future generations. To make her point, she told the story of a man who was visiting the Detroit Zoo with his family. And they were watching a young chimpanzee on an island being chased by a crowd of other apes who caught up with him and were beating him mercilessly, till finally the new chimpanzee had only been introduced to the island, and he didn't know what to do. And eventually the new monkey ran to the edge of the moat surrounding the island and leaped into the water. But the monkey was unable to swim. So the man on the outskirts leaped over the the gate and leaped into the water to save his life. And at that point, he pulled out the drowning monkey before he himself climbed back out. And eventually the zoo officials came by, and the family were wondering what's going on. Why did he leap over the wall to protect the monkey? Why did you do it? They said. And the man who rescued the drowning monkey simply replied, he was one of us. He was one of us. This is the message of eco-theology and deep ecology. It's the circle of compassion that has to widen the imperative of solidarity in ways that go beyond the parable of the Good Samaritan. And that, I think, is the golden rule that we want to remember, of widening the circle of compassion. And I know that our other panelists this evening, wherever you are on the globe, are going to widen that circle to the human beings alive in the years where some of us, who are elders like me, will not be around to see it. I wrote a letter of apology to my now 6-year-old granddaughter, because in 2094, she'll be the same age that I am now, basically saying, I'm sorry. We tried. We didn't fix it all. We did the best we could. That's the circle of compassion. And it began, by the way, with the medieval figures like Hildegard of Bingen and St. Francis, who both urged compassion for all creatures and for all of God's creation. The second S I want to talk about is sustainability. And the great world religions have always had sustainability at the core of their practice. Otherwise, they would not have survived. That's our sense of obligation for future generations. Where does it come from, sustainability? In my opinion, it comes from gratitude, and no one has put it better than St. Paul when he asked in Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 4:7, he said, and I'm quoting St. Paul, what do you have that you did not receive? What do you have that you did not receive? Gratitude towards those who come later is linked to our recognition, our gratitude to generations who came before. You know, I did my doctoral dissertation in 1973 on Meister Eckhart. Meister Eckhart once said, everything can be summed up in just one phrase. If you say only one prayer in your entire life, and that prayer is thank you, you've done enough. There's a temptation that we fall prey to think that it's too late. It's all too late. I'm too old. Nothing can be done. The distinctive religious virtues of faith and hope give us the resources that we need to overcome the temptation of despair. And it is a temptation. It is the voice of Satan, Shaitan in Arabic. It's still the same Shaitan. It is the voice. And in Arabic, in the Quran, it's called the whisperer. Don't listen to those whispers. Don't listen to those whispers. The last of the S's is stewardship. Solidarity, sustainability, stewardship. You know, faith-based organizations need to be present, and they need their voices to be heard. Christian voices, of course, especially, but all voices of faith. The Christians speak about solidarity in terms of kairos, a time of reckoning beyond time, which is spoken about in Psalms 24 and Mark 1:15, to protect and sustain creation as faithful stewards. As we listen to the imperatives of solidarity, sustainability, and stewardship, we need to respond to a global challenge faced by our generation. I mean, people like me, age 78, who lived at a time when the seasons were predictable, when we could say, May 10th, this is the end of frost date. Those dates are all different now. When my granddaughter was asking about going to school at night, when she saw the smoke and the darkness, we have to have an answer for her. When she reads my message in 2094. Somebody said to me recently, this is not about guilt. This is not about guilt. Guilt, we have too much of it. Somebody said the Jews invented it, the Catholics perfected it, and the Protestants turned it into the work ethic. We don't need that. We're holding hands in the dark. We're like people walking through a dark room, and we hold hands with each other like this. That's what this message is about. That's what Fratelli Tutti is about. That's what this conference is about. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Rick. You are passionate, that is for sure. And thank you for your message. Our second presenter today is my colleague. I'd like to say that. She is my colleague. I believe she may be now a month or something like that. 2 months. Okay, 2 months. Kayla Jacobs is program manager of youth mobilization at Catholic Climate Covenant for 2 months. I've had the honor to work with Kayla and the past and other positions that she had. And every single time that I have heard her speak about her work and her efforts, I've been amazed by her commitment, her energy, and her undeniable hope-filled approach to the climate crisis. Kayla's presentation, as we've been reminded, is titled Fratelli Tutti and Laudato Si for Generation Z, a story on youth mobilization. I want you to hear it because I believe wholeheartedly that the strategies that she is putting in place in the programming for youth mobilization are things that can be replicated and done other places. So Kayla, please let us know about your efforts.
Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Kayla Jacobs, and I join you from what is known as Madison, Wisconsin, USA, which is historically and rightfully belongs to the Ho-Chunk people. I am the program manager of youth mobilization for the Catholic Climate Covenant. And I'll soon tell you more about what that entails and more about our organization. But first, I think it will be helpful to share a little bit about my background. So before I started my role with the Covenant, I was in diocesan ministry for 9 years. A majority of that time was spent as the Associate Director of Justice and Peace for the Catholic Diocese of Joliet in Illinois. In that role, I worked on various social issues, such as immigration and poverty, violence, incarceration, hunger, workers' rights. And then I also did do the environmental ministry for the diocese, but that was just one small fraction of all of the other issues. And so I didn't get to spend that much time on it. And then in summer 2015, Pope Francis released Laudato Si, so that's his encyclical on caring for a common home. And when I read it, I felt like Pope Francis had written everything that I had thought and felt as a young person, but he just did it in a more eloquent way than I could ever do it. And in his language of integral ecology, he put all of the pieces together for me and really called my attention and all of our attention to all of the intersections of the plight of the earth and the plight of the poor and the vulnerable. And so through that experience, I was inspired by my Pope to focus all of my time and energy on the climate crisis. And I had many reasons for doing that. So of course, one, I'm Catholic and the Pope is prioritizing it. So I knew that I had to do that as well. Another reason is that the climate crisis is very time pressing. So the longer we wait to take action, the less of a chance we'll have at meeting our global goal of limiting our Earth's warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Additionally, I knew that the impact it could have on the institution of the Catholic Church and the world. So the Global Catholic Church owns a lot of land and a lot of buildings, from schools, hospitals, charities, homes, administrative buildings, churches. And so if we were able to make all of those buildings go net zero, I knew that it would have a major impact on the earth. And then last but not least, I also knew that all of the other issues that I cared about, like violence, immigration, racism, poverty, hunger, all of those things are made worse when you add the climate crisis on top of that. So when the earth cries, we all know, so do the poor and the vulnerable the most. So with the generosity of many people through encouragement, prayer, mentoring, and funds, and many conversations with our former bishop and other diocesan leaders, I was able to start a Laudato Si specific ministry in the Diocese of Joliet, which I served as the program director of for 3 years. And all of that history eventually led me to the Catholic Climate Covenant, as Paz pointed out. I've been there for 2 months. So the Catholic Climate Covenant is a national Catholic organization in the US that inspires climate action and the response to Laudato Si in the US Catholic Church through education, advocacy, and community building. And as I mentioned, I am the Youth Mobilization Program Manager. And so there are obviously 2 key words in that title. One is youth. So for us, that is 18 years old and younger. So high school students and younger. And so our primary program that I'm going to talk more about soon actually focuses mostly on high school students, with the hopes that in the future we could take it to even younger students. And then the other word is mobilization, which is defined as the action of making something movable or capable of movement. So for us, we have a heavy emphasis on action, and the something we're trying to move is our church. All right, so I'm really excited to tell you more about the Youth Mobilization Program for 2 reasons. One is that I'm pretty proud of it. I actually started this program when I was still with the Diocese of Joliet, and that's what we're modeling our national program after now. And it's just been one of the most fulfilling things I've worked on in my organizing efforts over the years. And then the other reason is that it's just one of the biggest sources of hope for me, meeting with young people and hearing what they have to say and seeing their leadership skills thrive. It just gives me a lot of hope for the church and also for the earth. So if you would really like to witness that applied hope that was mentioned before, so hope as a verb, I definitely recommend paying attention to what these high school students are doing. Yeah, so the program in summary is a leadership development program that we created. So we create teams of 12 high school students from various schools and churches, and we provide them with training and skills to take leadership in our church and in the world around the climate crisis. The students commit to the team for the school year, and they meet every other week via Zoom for community building and learning about community organizing, church leadership, climate action leadership. And we bring in professionals in the field to mentor these students and share their knowledge. Towards the end of the school year, they put their new leadership skills into practice, and they host a Catholic Youth Climate Summit for a larger audience of students, of their fellow students, in which they come together and learn about advocacy and sustainability. And then they also have time to do some creative strategizing and socializing. Getting to hang out with others, students from other schools is always really exciting for them. And then also has prayer and mass, and it's very reflective as well. And the objective of the summit is for each student to leave with a concrete action plan to take back to their schools or their church or their community. We want to make sure that every student who attends knows what their next steps are post-summit. And so our goal for the program is to create a space for youth to take leadership and make decisions in the church and in the world. We also hope to transform our schools specifically our Catholic schools, to go net zero. We also want to just create a movement of youth who are there to support each other and walk with each other in their efforts towards climate action and justice. And the reasoning for this program is that we know youth are willing and able to take leadership, but they often aren't given that space, especially within the church. And then youth also have a very deep concern and anxiety about the climate crisis. And in the meantime, they're also feeling very disconnected from their faith and from the church. And so this program is our effort of meeting them where they're at and helping them live out their faith through a topic that they care so deeply about. And then additionally, many of our schools have eco clubs like as part of like their student life. But the more I've been getting out and meeting with schools and students, the more I'm learning that a lot of them don't really know what to do beyond maybe a couple educational events or recycling efforts, but they want to take it to the next level and they just don't know how to do that. And so we're here to hopefully help them discern how to take those next steps as well. So I do want to share my screen just to share a little bit, some images from the summit that we had last year. So just give me one moment. All right. Do y'all see my screen? I'm hoping, yes.
No, we do not see your screen.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
How about
now we
now?
do.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Let me put this on slideshow. Awesome. Okay, so here are some images from our summit last year. On the left, you'll see a list of things that students came up with during their strategic action planning workshop. So you'll see some things that they're interested in. So like bringing back recycling in their lunchroom. They want environmental science classes to be provided for freshmen so that they get exposure to that kind of education earlier at their school. That happens in later years. They want food from gardens to be provided in their cafeteria. They want solar power at their school. And they want less plastic to be used in their cafeteria as well. And then in that middle panel, you'll see a really cool banner that one of the students made. And it says, Catholic youth want climate action because. And then throughout the summit, students went up to that and wrote their reasonings. And I'll share some more pictures of that on the next slide that when it's more filled in. And then on the right, you'll see a basket of letters, and those are letters that the students wrote to elected officials. This summit was in Illinois, and it was on Illinois-related policy around environmental issues. And the bishops actually gave their approval to write this letter on that policy. And so then the students were able to activate their voices and send letters to their elected officials. And then here are just a couple more pictures. On the top picture, it's during the action planning portion of the summit. So we break them up by school that they come with so that they create a plan together as a school that they take back to hopefully put into action and transform the culture of their school around sustainability. We bring in a community organizer to facilitate that workshop for the students. And then you'll see the banner a little more filled in, and actually it's even more filled in now, and it's hanging up at one of our Catholic high schools in the Archdiocese of Chicago. So the banner lives, and hopefully we'll have it at other summits in the future. But you'll just see some of the reasons why Catholic youth care for climate action. So you'll see like animals on there, wildlife for their future generations, for the kids. One person wrote, we should not be suffering the consequences of corporate greed. Our earth demands it, our earth needs it, our future needs it. So very straight and to the point, and inspirational messages from the students of why they care for climate action. And then I also pulled some quotes just in conversations that I've had with some of the youth that I work with. So here's a quote from a girl, Mary, who is now a senior at a Catholic high school in the Chicago area. And she's been part of our program for the past 2 years. And she said, "I love getting to connect and learn about environmental justice with other like-minded people of faith." That's like a big thing that we hear from the students, like that one of the things that they love the most is just the community feel of it and like feeling connected to the church through other young people on a topic that they all care about. I don't know. Okay, super. Here's another quote, a little longer, but a very good quote by a girl, Becca, who was on our leadership team last year. She's a junior this year, and she said this when she was a sophomore. And she said, "I always had climate anxiety. I really wanted to spread the message with other young people that this is a problem happening in the world and that we can do something about it. We don't just have to sit by and let the adults take hold of the situation, because someday we're going to be the adults and we have to do something about it." I love this quote because that's basically what my whole goal is. It is to create a space in which the adults like take a step back and let the students run with it and like tell us what they want us to do and what they need us to do. And so I just love this quote because the students are obviously very much on the same page with that as well. And then here are just a couple little quotes. This year at our first meeting with our new leadership team, the first meeting was just us all getting to know each other and then us sharing with them what they're committed to for the school year as being a member of the leadership team and what that will all entail. And then we asked them at the end to share a word or a few words of how they were feeling based off of everything we had just told them. And so these are some of those words. So you'll see that they're excited, eager, stoked. As one person said, this is going to be fun. They're happy to connect with passionate people. One student said that we have a lot of work to do, but they feel that they're qualified to do it. And then a few of them said that this is just like a cool and different and special ministry to be part of that they had never really have experienced before in the church. Okay, so now I'm going to stop sharing, hopefully. All right, you can't see it now, right?
Yep,
Cool.
it's good.
I'm going to bring my notes up really quick. Awesome. So let me just find where I'm at. Sorry. All right. So now we're, so last year was our first year doing this program, and this is our first year doing it through the Catholic Climate Covenant. And so it's year 2. So far, it's only in the Chicagoland area, but next school year, we're hoping to start it in several more regions across the country and build more leadership teams of students. And so just a couple of things since starting the program, like things I want to highlight. Last year, we only had a handful of schools that participated. This year, we've already doubled the amount of schools that have been engaged in our program. We again, are taking it to the national level, which is exciting. We have a team of school staff that also formed this year. So they were hearing the buzz from their students after the summit last year. And I had a lot of school staff reaching out to me asking how they can best support the students. So now those teachers and faculty meet once a month via Zoom to just kind of brainstorm and share ideas. And this year at our Climate Summit, we're actually going to have a track for school staff as well to talk about how they could best support the students. And they'll also be participating in the action planning workshop with the students so that they can help them implement whatever they come up with at the schools. And then the students, since the last year's summit, we've been able to follow up with some of the students and keep them engaged. And so they've been involved in some of our legislative visits with elected officials. They've advocated for school composting and recycling and energy efficiency programs. And then they've also built community amongst each other. A big thing that they say a lot is that they don't want this to just be another program that they sign up for and maybe have a couple of events and they put it on like maybe their resumes or college applications, but they really want it to feel and be a movement of students taking leadership and action on an issue that they're just extremely passionate and are very concerned about. So yeah, that is our youth leadership program. Happy to take questions. I think probably at the end.
Yes, thank you. The questions will be at the end. And as I said, what Kayla is working on is what gives me much hope. And I believe that you have seen the possibilities and the growth potential for this kind of program. Let me now present our next speaker. I'm excited about our next speaker because he's coming from a part of the world that we have not usually in the United States listened to, and it's important for us to listen. I'm excited and looking forward to hearing Noor Abdullahi Banfoya, founder and executive director of Hope for a Better Future in Cameroon, or H4BF, an NGO, non-governmental organization with ECOSOC, the UN Economic and Social Council. Noor is going to be speaking on crisis-affected women and climate change in Southwest Cameroon. And as I said, it is so important to hear how climate change is impacting already communities in the global South and about the hope-filled work that is being done by those that are most impacted. Sometimes we start listening from the global North only and about what we are doing. So I am really thankful that today we get to hear from folks like Noor. Noor, you have 20 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy to be with you all today. And I was glad to be invited for this important event. And I don't know if it's possible you could share my slide. Yeah, while you're doing that, I will be talking briefly on introducing Cameroon. Cameroon is a country in the West, in sub-Saharan Africa, with a population of about 30 million persons. So it's a bilingual country with Northwest and Southwest being the English speaking part of Cameroon. I happen to come from the Northwest part of Cameroon, where I'm presenting from. And it's sad to let everyone know that we have been in crisis for over 6 years now. And if you're reading through the media, definitely you will learn more about killing of persons, displacements of persons. You will hardly learn something about the effect, how it affects climate change. So our NGO have been paying keen attention to this and doing some background studies, and also been doing some work in response to the result that we came out. Yeah, so our idea pops up when we visited some communities, and we noticed that most NGOs that used to conserve the environment through tree planting and other activities, due to the crisis, most of them shift their activities to the French side of Cameroon, leaving the community to survive on their own. And also, the power was affected, which means there are communities that since the crisis began, they haven't been able to have a supply of electricity in their community. So this have made them to turn into negative or harmful fuel for survivors. Like, for example, they are cooking with wood. They cut down the forest for firewood, and they also use kerosene lamps for children to read, and also for businesses to survive in most host communities within the regions. Yeah, so it's mostly affected the rural part of the communities, making most of the cities congested, which means most people from the rural parts are moving into some of the south cities that are a little safe. Yeah, so I happen to live in Bamenda, and it's sad to also let you know that I live in a quarter which is supposed to be the government residential area. As you can see, it's dark, meaning we don't have electricity, which means you can imagine of those in other places that are more a last mile or hard to reach area than us here. Yeah, so these definitely have been affecting the climate negatively, the use of harmful fuel and others. And we, after carrying out some studies, decided to introduce a program seeing how we could replace kerosene lamps with solar lamps. And we do this through distribution of this solar lamps to the most vulnerable ones. And after we did the pilot phase, we noticed that some of these lamps had issues, and there were no persons within these communities to repair them. So we are talking about women that before it's getting to dark, they are worried. They are not just worried on what they are going to eat, because in most crises, most people definitely will be thinking about the food crisis, which means most of the budget would go to how to supply food to this community and shelter. And there is a little or nothing to conserve the climate. And that is where we have been paying keen attention to. Yeah, so when we distributed these lamps, and we noticed that most of these communities, when they are damaged, it's difficult to have them repaired. And also some hospitals that have solars installed, when it has issues, they have to travel or to invite people from cities, which take quite some time for them to arrive to repair this solar systems to get them back into business. So we started thinking about how we could empower most of the displaced women, and that is how the program came about. And we decided to introduce another program where we select women from these communities, since most people face challenges, or some technicians refuse to go to these communities because of the crisis. So what do? We go to these communities, we select women that are interested, of course, and who meet some criteria that could read or write, and interested to take back in the program. And then we train them on how to install solar systems within these communities. We also train them on how to repair these solar lamps. And then we support them by starting solar solution centers for them, of which through these centers, they empower themselves by providing services to other members in the communities. So they don't only bring light to the community, they also empower themselves through the program, because through these solar solution centers, populations are able to charge their phones for some little money. They are also able to conserve, to preserve or to preserve their food, for example, or like drying of vegetables through solar systems that are available in these centers, and also damage systems within these communities are repaired by these women. So we we, with limited fundings, are able to implement in a community known as Dongamantu, which is just one out of the 7 subdivisions that are found in the northwest region of Cameroon. And also we have the southwest, which also have about 8 subdivisions, and we are still just in 1 subdivision, which is the Dongamantu division. Yeah, so far we are able to distribute about 3,000 solar lamps, and we are able to train 8 women who are successfully running solar solution centers. And we are also able to sensitize the community on harmful effects of cutting down the forest. And we try to provide other solutions by making them switch from cutting down firewood. We have for them, women going to fetch firewood is not just harmful to the society, it's also not safe as most of them at times being attacked by wild animals in the forest, and some are raped on their way back from the forest. So we try to also sensitize them and make them to switch from using firewood to using green stoves, which we produce them locally, and they are sustainable because we use farm waste materials to produce the charcoals that are being used in these solar in these green stoves. Yeah, so the program is still ongoing, and just recently we got fundings from the Jack Trust, and we are expanding to other communities. And I don't know, Marita, is my slide ready? Maybe I want to share some pictures.
Yes. You can share your slides.
Okay. I was hoping you would open it from there. I shared with you. Yeah. So while you're doing that, another activity of the program is that we also noticed that some of the displaced women that move from the highly affected areas to these communities, they have and finding it difficult to live together with to people in host communities. So we introduced another program where we organize Sport for Peace, where we could have a football match for women, and they play, and then we use this opportunity to share a message of peace, to let them know how they can live together. We make people in host community understand what people that are running away from crisis have been through, what they expect of them, how they can live together. And we also use the opportunity to of course, ensure that we sensitize on the harmful effects of the climate by the use of by cutting down trees and use of kerosene lamps. And so, if you have my presentation, I would like to share some pictures. Maybe you can open it from your end.
Yes, our tech team was scheduled to open that. They have it, but I will go back and get it and do it myself.
Okay.
So you keep talking. And
okay.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So basically, another program that we are running under the program is that we at first were having challenges on where to get solar lamps, and we decided to partner with Total, that is producing very good durable solar lamps, and we are working together with them now, and we are in the process of creating a distribution center here in Bamenda, which would make it easier for lambs to be transported from the city of Bamenda to other communities where we are implementing. Maybe if you could switch down, since I've already talked about most of this, where we have pictures. Maybe after the presentation, you could share this. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So on these pictures, you could see, maybe come back a bit. Yeah, you could see at our vocational training center where we are training women on how to install a solar system. And the picture on the left is at the center. And then the picture on the right is them doing what we have trained them in practical. So they're implementing it. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so on this picture, you can see a lady on the store where she has, of course, a solar system where people are paying some fee to charge their phone. And then on the right also, we have a man who is also an intelligent displaced man. He has a very sad story. He lost his family and his wife, and he's a single dad with 5 children to take care of, and reason why we integrated him into the program. So we are, through him, empowering his girls, because the money he makes from here is able to pay their school fees and other needs, and provide other needs that they need. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, and here you could see, of course, the family using the product, the lambs to read at night. You see a father trying to train, show a child or something on the book, and of course, a lady with one of the lamb. Yeah, just a lady. Yeah, for the beauty. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, and here, of course, these are the social cohesion programs where we have talks, and then we also have football, we have volleyballs, where women and girls, of course, they play and then we use this opportunity to sensitize, and then, of course, teach them how to live together, and also sensitize on the harmful effects of the climate, and how they could prevent that by stopping some of the human actions that they take by, of course, replacing kerosene lamps with solar lamps. Next slide. Yeah, and of course, maybe if you're wondering how solar lamps is able to reduce the amounts of carbon dioxide in the city, so if you could Google, according to Wikipedia, it shows that 1 liter of kerosene burn release approximately 2.5 kilograms of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which means an average family using 18 liters a month, that means they are able to release 2.5 times 18. So if you times that by number of years, you will understand the harmful effects that that does. So when we replace that, of course, we are limiting the amount of carbon dioxide that is going into the atmosphere. Yeah, next slide. Yeah. So I already that we are finalizing plans to create distribution hubs within Bamenda and Bafoussam. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, so we have here some of the women and their success story. We have Jocelyn, and we have Jocelyn and Hurera, of course. They are 2 of our beneficiaries who are running the Solar Solutions Center, and they were able to share their story on how the program have not just how it helped them to save money, because of course buying kerosene is not just about saving climate, it's also very expensive to manage because they have to buy it every day. And by providing a solar lamp, of course, they just need to put it on the sun to shine. So it saves money for them, which they can use it for other purposes like paying school fees for their children and all the like. And it's also through them running these centers, they are able to also take part in decision making within their families, which is something they were not able to do when they didn't have a means of livelihood. Yeah, so summarily, I think this is just what we do, and there are still other programs which we implement, and of course we always ensure, like our agricultural program, we ensure that we mainstream climate change within either through sensitization or through the type of products that we give, or through the types of people we work with. We ensure that we mainstream aspect of climate change in all the programs that we provide within the context. Yeah, so thank you very much. And if there are questions, of course, I will have them at the end. Yeah.
Thank you, Noel. And I must say that this panel has made my job so easy. You all have stayed within 20 minutes, and I have not had to be the meanie coming in. So congrats for that. I'm now pleased to present our final two speakers, Marilyn Cott, and who I have had the pleasure to work with on a few projects, and Celine Woznicka, who I have heard so much about, but have never really met. So I'm glad to see you. And I just want to call on everybody here to say a little prayer for her grandson who is being discharged today from the hospital. And I'll let her talk about that. So Marilyn and Celine are founders of the Marinol affiliate Laudato Si working group. The group has been creating a user-friendly program to guide individuals and families becoming more environmentally sustainable in the spirit of Laudato Si. And one of the things that I have been immensely amazed by is, from what little I know from Celine and from what I've known now about Marilyn, is these are two women, when they see a need for a resource or they see something that needs doing, they don't wait for another group to do it. They go ahead and they create the resource. And for that, I'm thankful to you, because you are gifting the world your resources. I believe that Celine's going first and then Marilyn. So you have 20 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm turned on my timer. Thank you. I am actually coming to you from the family room at Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago. But my grandson will be discharged soon. Thank you again. I'm going to share a slide, share a screen, I mean, and so we'll just get right to it. Okay. Share sound. Okay. And I will put it on from the beginning. So yes, this presentation will be on putting the Laudato Si action platform into practice. And just a little brief outline of what we'll be doing. We'll do a brief outline of introduction to Laudato Si, because we're just assuming that most people have a familiarity to it. The Laudato Si action platform, which is a part of it's on the Vatican website. And then what we tried to do to bring it, sort of bring it home. So as you all know, the Laudato Si is the Catholic Church's teaching that we have a responsibility to care for God's creation, and that failing to do so, we are harming the earth, the poor, future generations, and our relationship with God. So the Laudato Si action platform it's fairly easy to remember. That's easy to implement, but it's easy to remember. Just think 777. There's 7 goals, which we see here, and we'll be going through it. Okay, 7 goals. There's 7 different sectors: families, educational institutes, the economy, religious orders, organizations and groups, hospitals and healthcare centers, and parishes and dioceses. And there's 7 years. So the first year is the discernment, reflection and planning. Year 2 through 6 is implementation. And then the 7th year is the Sabbath year, to reflect and to celebrate. This is the Laudato Si Action Platform website of the Vatican. Comes in multiple languages. It's amazing, but we felt the need to do something accessible to people who might not have the patience or time to become a Laudato Si Action Platform's online communities and teach themselves about environmentalism. It's wonderful, but you just sometimes need a little guide. Our worksheets assume that the participants have goodwill and are willing to learn about behaviors which help the environment and be challenged away from behaviors that harm it. So here's where we started. Marilyn and I are part of the Maryknoll Affiliates, which is a group of lay people, and there's also other society members and congregation, but we're communities not only within the United States, but globally where Maryknoll has served, who try to live the Maryknoll charism, okay? So we started this within the Maryknoll Affiliates. Okay, listen, we started these worksheets and we started sharing it among our chapter here in Chicago, but then spreading it to other chapters. And then the Maryknoll Office of Global Concerns picked it up and they liked it, and they're put it on their website and they're sharing it. And then the Catholic Climate Covenant liked it and they picked it on their website and they're promoting it. And so where we go from here, it's a network of like-minded organizations that are spreading it, okay? We will admit that our worksheets are oriented towards households in North America, but that's our expertise and that's our original audience. But our worksheets are constantly recommended as good starting points for all sectors by the Catholic Climate Covenant, okay? So this is the website from the Catholic Climate Covenant, and we can put that in the chat as well, okay? It starts off with a brief introduction to the goal, and then followed by 2 to 3 focus areas. But my colleague, I'm going to stop share, then I'm going to open up. My colleague, Marilyn, will take over. Okay, shoot. I'm sorry. Marilyn, did you have the Catholic Climate Covenant website open?
I do. Paz just dropped it into the website, and then I just the overall God's Planet website, dropped it into the chat. I'm sorry.
Okay. And then do you want okay, do you want to take it from here?
You betcha. So thank you. Yeah, Celine and I have been, it's been fun to work together on this. And as she mentioned, we just, our original hope was to make the Laudato Si Action platform more accessible to a group that we were within. And we've really, I've really enjoyed learning together. So we kind of hope to, in this briefing, explain the logic behind the worksheets, and maybe a little bit if you were interested in doing them either for your own household, which is what they're designed for, or we've learned that communally, if you do it with a group, maybe you meet with a group every week or every month, then when you discuss the different actions that are suggested, you learn from each other, and it's strengthened it a lot. So my first recommendation before I go to the slides, I'm just going to say I have this 1.5-inch binder here because we do recommend that people print. I know that's kind of an unusual thing in when we're trying to save the environment, but the worksheets, there are 7 of them, and we've made it so that you could read through them, discuss them, and then sit down, and there are places where you sit there and write what you're going to do and sort of commit to it. Our promise, so to speak, is that if you follow us through all 7 worksheets, they are based on the different Laudato Si Action platform goals. And at the end of the 7 worksheets, you will have created a plan for your household, and then you can implement that plan. And you don't have to do all the research yourself. And we give a variety of actions and ways to learn. So let me go to, as mentioned before, we're so grateful for the hosting by Catholic Climate Covenant. And there's a website called We're All Part of God's Planet, which helps U.S. Catholics go through we call it the LSAP. If you went to the main platform, if you went to the main website, you would find that there's this area called sectors, and you're part of some community here. And so then you click into families and individuals, and right at the top here is a button that takes you to our worksheets. And what do those worksheets look like? Generally, they're 3 pages long. I'm going to show you worksheet number 1. And again, we recommend some sort of old-fashioned notebook and printing scheme, printing the worksheets themselves. But the idea is go ahead and print it and then sit down, because year 1 is a reflection and contemplation as well as a discovery period. We tried to keep it from being too dense, but we start by saying what the worksheet is all about, what the platform is about, and then what the worksheet is about. And the first paragraph that you see here is actually how the Vatican defines goal number 1, which is responding to the cry of the earth. And generally, that's a pretty big goal if you read all the way through it. How can we protect our common home, addressing climate crisis, biodiversity loss, ecological sustainability, and then actions? As you see, there's a whole huge list of them. And it's a lot. So if we all do our part, we break it down and do what we can do, then that's all we're really asked to do, and we are asked to do that much. So then we narrow it down in this worksheet. We have decided to take a few of those actions and focus on them. So again, for worksheet number 1, we decided to focus on fossil fuels. So how is a household using electricity, natural gas and heating oil, and then transportation? So big picture, those are our summarized actions. In each worksheet, we have 3 different categories of action. The first one is pray, because we're people of faith and God is with us in this, and God can help us. So we started very gently in worksheet number 1 with, hey, begin to include prayers for creation. If you haven't thought of doing that, in the Catholic rite, we have prayer intentions, and we generally understand those to be about a sick relative or some struggle that each of us are going through. But, have we ever thought about praying actually for the watershed or for the trees in Cameroon? And so anyway, that's a prayer suggestion. Then in the activities that you can tangibly do in your household to improve your environmental sustainability, we give some short-term actions and some longer-term actions. So there are some things people can get their hands on right away. Maybe they haven't thought of them, maybe they have thought of them, but it gives a starter action. And for example, improving the weather tightness of your home. In North America, a lot of the energy that we use is due to air conditioning and heating. And so even if you just plug up, make your doors a little firmer, or your windows, you add curtains, then you're going to help right there instantly. Longer term, you might want to replace your furnace. And then finally, the third category of action is advocacy. And we give 3 suggestions. There's almost always one that's aimed toward a person's parish or church. So for example, here, hey, next time you fill out a customer comment card, put something about the environment in there. Either if you're at a restaurant, ask them to stop using plastic something, or thank them for not using plastic something. Number 2, write to your political leaders. We've probably already been asked to do that before, and Kayla's doing a great job of energizing our youth. Number 3, ask your pastor and parish. I mentioned that in the Catholic rite, we have a prayer intention area. Then go ahead and ask your pastor to start including those in your mass. Okay, so that's the first page. We sort of give a big summary, and then we recommend, okay, stop there, talk with somebody about it, think about it, pray a little bit, and then come back later and go to page 2 and 3, and we've given sort of a place where you can, we repeat all that information and maybe give some more information where you can find more suggestions, but we also give a place where you can sit down with a pencil or a pen and start committing to things that you're going to do long-term in your household. And in the first worksheet, because it's about fossil fuels, we also included a table where people could start putting their utility use in terms of kilowatt hours and therms, and not just in dollars. We probably all know about how much our utilities cost us every month out of our checkbook, but we might not understand what the therms are. And as our colleague No said earlier, how do you translate to carbon? Anyway, and then at the end, we sort of, we have this little green paragraph where we pat people on the back and encourage them to keep on doing the program. We also on the website, so that was kind of the starter, how we thought we would engage our community there in Chicago. We realized that not everybody, some people learn better with visuals, or that visuals help. So we added some resources. Let's see if I can share screen here, just to kind of make some of these things a little more accessible. Some photographs of maybe some ideas on how to make your house, how to help your house not leak its heat and its air conditioning, and maybe what you can set your thermostat at to save energy. Some ways you can not use natural gas or other fossil fuels in the kitchen by going electric. We probably all have crock pots, and a lot of people have microwaves, so use that when you can. We do, you know, some other things. Again, none of this is rocket science, and people probably know these behaviors, but if they haven't thought about them in a while, then there's some ideas there for them. So that's kind of how the worksheets go. Right now, this being January or February already, we are complete with number 5. We just paused, and the Maryknoll Office of Global Concerns just posted them for us. So we're all the way up through ecological education. Number 6 will be out this month, and then number 7, God willing, in March. So as we said, if you go through all 7 worksheets, you'll have built your own household's plan, and then you can implement. You can do this in a group setting, as mentioned. We have some tips for how to do that, so you could contact us if you wanted to start with that. And then just kind of some main points we wanted to kind of wrap up here with. I'll move along. Is, you know, and it's been mentioned by others in this group, but everyone's participation is needed in this. And I think sometimes when you hear people say, well, what difference can I make? You know, there's a form of despair that's happening there, and we don't need that, because God is with us, right? So taking even little actions help strengthen your relationship with our God, as well as with everything that He has created. And so everything that we do matters, and everything we do contributes. And then second of all, I'd just like to say, I'm so inspired by Laudato Si, Pope Francis bringing together Catholic teaching on the environment and on caring, not just for the physical earth and its creatures, but also caring maybe a little better for each other. And I find that Laudato Si, one of the main messages of it is a call to return to the Lord. In a lot of ways, a lot of modern society really draws us away from that. We have a lot of comforts. We're used to thinking in terms and talking in terms of money, and maybe we don't always consider. It's harder for us to consider other impacts of our actions. So it's really, to me, a call back to God, and a need to a reminder that we have a shared responsibility for each other. So we had one more slide we wanted to show you.
Okay.
And while I'm bringing up that slide, I'll mention that one of the things I was most, for example, a call to come back to God and sort of not letting Him get lost in our modern society. Laudato Si made me take the Sabbath, the day of rest, whatever religion you're in, a lot more seriously. And I think about that now, and it's not just maybe a pious way of me not doing something like shopping on a Sunday. But when I don't shop on a Sunday, people don't have to work on a Sunday. So I learned that from this experience.
I can share this one, okay?
And we'd like to close. Oh, okay. Celine put up the slide.
Let me just,
I'd like to invite you to a condensed version.
Of, I'm sorry, I just lost it.
Go ahead.
The other one. Okay, let me try it again.
Okay.
I had it up, and then I lost it, and then I'm going to go back to it now.
Okay.
Here it is. Okay, here it is. Slide, share screen, and here it is.
The document concludes with this, and so if you don't mind joining us in this, a prayer for our earth. All-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Celine. Thank you, Marilyn. We're now going to move into part of the presentations, which is Q&A is coming. So if you have questions, keep putting them in, and I will present them to the panel. But at this point, we're going to have a little bit of dialogue within the panel. And I'm going to take a point of order and sort of say that after listening to all of you, the words that now came to mind, besides hope, which is totally what undergirds all of the work that you're doing, it amazes me that, for example, the work that No's doing about bringing light forward, enlightenment, empowerment, they're the same things that each of you are doing within your community or your sector. You bring light, you enlighten, and you're empowering. The fact that you are doing it in such different manners, but it all comes back to really what Fratelli Tutti and Laudato Si are all about. I've always said that those two encyclicals are the Pope's gift to the world. That they enlighten us and they will hopefully empower all of us. I want to sort of reverse what I had been told to do. I had been told to try to put questions and get the panel discussing. I want to allow each of you to be able to talk to another panelist and ask question or get some clarification, because usually it's the moderator that takes charge and sort of decides. And I want to be able to give you the opportunity to also talk to each other. So for example, just to get us started, I would love to hear, for example, from Rick. One thing that you would say to elders who are feeling despair, the one thing that they should be doing, which is also the question then to Kayla about what's one thing that youth want to say to the world, that because we're always asking youth, don't despair, don't, we're putting it on them. I would like to turn it around on for Kayla and to sort of say it to what youth would say to everybody else. So Rick, you can start and then everybody else can join in. Rick, you're muted.
Trying to be helpful. I think we need to be listening to one another, not muted. I'm not, I stopped the muting. People are muted. Sometimes they self-mute. I self-muted this morning because I said, oh, I don't want to. And let's use muting as a metaphor. And we sometimes are muting even from ourselves, from things that we know, but we do not yet see. And we can use the Jungian phrase shadow for that. So there are elements in us that are shadow elements. And I think with regard to generations communicating with each other, there are shadow elements in the old and shadow elements in the young. That is things that we're afraid of and that we can't even pinpoint. And I'm mispronouncing his name. Is No here, still here in Nago? He's not on the screen. That's why I'm asking that question.
Yes, I'm here.
I have a kind of a shadow question that I would like to ask you, because I'm a white man and an older man, and I live in the developed, that is to say, rich world. And my question to you is, what can we, in the widest sense of the word we, actually do to help the work that you're doing in Cameroon? And what, if you don't mind my asking, and you don't need to name specific organizations or individuals, I'm not trying to cast blame here. What has been done that is actually harmful or failed to succeed, to put it more pleasantly? I'm interested in shadow questions, things that we maybe don't like to talk about. That's my challenge to you.
Yes, thank you, Rick, for this question. Yeah, in regards to what you can do, I think this program already gives us a platform for other people around the world to learn about what is happening in Cameroon, because like your report says online, the crisis in Cameroon is one of the most neglected crises in the world, and if the crisis is facing it, and it's the least funded crisis in the world also. I think the list in terms of the last three in terms of fundings around the world. So if they could be looking at least funding in terms of securing people, in terms of providing shelter, in terms of providing food, then what more of funding for climate? Yeah, so it's quite challenging. And also using your platform to share our work is also a plus for us. And of course, partnering with us to extend the program to other communities and also other affected countries, because it's not just Cameroon that is in crisis. There are also other countries that are also facing the same challenges. I belong to a network known as Masterpiece, and we have young people from around 32 countries in Africa, and most of them also have the same challenges. And we usually, at times when we have a good, we replicate using this network of youth to see how they could implement the same ideas in their own communities. So at the moment, we don't have enough resources. The needs are more than we can provide. And also in terms of capacity of the organization. Yes, so generally, like I can say, is and also through donation, of course, yeah, could also be a way of helping us boost our work. Yeah.
No, on that, I know there was a question that I was going to present later, but maybe now's a better time. Perhaps you can share the place where folks that want to donate to your efforts, where they can do that, so that we can share that within this platform. If you write it in the chat, they can then put it up on for everybody. Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately for us, we used to collect donation through a Giving Way, and they shut down their services. PayPal, our country doesn't support PayPal, so it's quite challenging. Most of the time, we usually, when we see a volunteer, the volunteer could collect funds on our behalf and then send it to us through the bank account, to a wired transfer. We are still figuring out with a volunteer who is already in Cameroon. He will be with us from UK. He will be with us on the 11th to see how we could register H4BF in UK. I think through that we can be able to set up a donation page, because with paper terms and conditions, of course, we need to show proof of location, and they are not supporting other countries. So we are, so right now it will be challenging to send funds directly. So we can either maybe just provide bank details, or maybe we have someone that could collect on our behalf and then transfer to us.
Right. Okay. Well, prayers for better process for funding.
Yes. Thank you.
Kayla, I had set it up also for you to sort of, what is it that youth want to speak out, that want to unmute themselves and say? And I don't want to say speak for the youth, but since I would guess that the majority of folks listening to this panel are probably not youth, perhaps we can use you as the intermediary of unmuting the youth.
Mhm. Yeah, so I would say one of the biggest themes that I hear, or biggest frustrations that I hear from young people, is just inaction. So they've gotten a lot of excitement and hope from our program, but have said things to us like, we had no idea that the church was even talking about this. Like, they're not talking about it at my church, or like when they've met me or other like adults that are helping with the process, they're just like, we didn't know that people like you exist in the church that we could like talk to about these things. And so I think that's a clear sign that we're not being active enough. These students, I mean, they're spending most of their time at their Catholic schools, still pretty involved at their parish through their families. And so they should be hearing about it more often. And so, so yes, I would say that they largely would like adults to first give them space to take leadership and make decisions about sustainability in the church, but then also for adults who are decision makers to make decisions that have their futures in mind. Again, that's all around like sustainability. So.
Yeah. Other panelists, do you have any responses, comments to each other?
I'll make
then
a
I'll-
quick comment.
yeah.
I can always talk. So it's interesting to hear, and thank you, Kayla, for reminding us of the urgency that especially the folks younger than us feel, because it can be hard when you speak with someone and they say, well, I'm too old to change my ways. You'll have to talk to the young people. And in my head, I'm trying not to judge them, and you have to meet people where they are. But the idea that someone would throw away their grandchild's future for something as simple as one of my favorite rants is against water in plastic bottles, which in our communities we don't need because our drinking water is clean, but that's another whole story. And just the damage that is done in just such little ways. So I think finding ways to sort of engage that person the second time around in the Catholic and in many faith experiences, there's an annual opportunity in Catholicism, we call it Lent. And so maybe a suggestion is, well, hey, maybe you could consider giving that up for Lent this year. Just try it.
That's right.
I'd like to add some more things too. I first of all, I want to thank everyone who organized this webinar, because it's so well put together and so important. And what I am really picking up as well is how broad the response has to be, because how broad are the effects of it. Absolutely everything boils down to climate change. I happen to teach public health in a graduate level. And in the concluding seminars, when I talk about public health in the 21st century, I said it's all boiling down to climate change. Absolutely. I mean, we just experienced that right now with the pandemic. The pandemic would not have been as serious as it been if it hadn't been for the imbalance of the health of the environment with the health of the animals, with the world, with the health of humans. We are, as they say in Spanish, una sola salud. We're one health. We have to have a balance. And when there's climate change, it affects it. The other thing is people talk about, we got to talk about this other issue, the issue of migrants, and it's still climate change. Climate change is causing so many of the issues that we're facing on a global level. So I am grateful for the broad representation here. And I also really loved the stories. I think the stories are actually a key way to get people to respond. We love stories, and stories are very replicable, and they're culturally competent and linguistically competent. Let's just keep telling stories on an individual basis to make change. We change ourselves, we can change the world. So that's my little 2 additional cents here.
Thank you, Celine. And I'm going to put a plug again for the We're All Part of God's Planet campaign. We shared that link to the Maryknoll worksheets, but within there's a whole section on stories. And for the very reason that you're talking about, it is through stories that we can connect people with the issue of climate change, because those stories are telling their stories. And really go in there and see the stories from the most broad sectors of the Catholic Church of what actions they're taking already. And if you have one, there's a little button to submit your story. So go there. But thank you, Celine. I want to ask No, in your presentation as a Global North person, I immediately saw the issues from the perspective of women who, for us in the Global North, in the North American continent area, the thought that in order to cook, you might be putting your life in danger because animals might be attacking you. And it immediately connected with last week, the brouhaha that occurred because somebody decided to say that perhaps gas stoves needed to be taken away. And the whole United States reacted as if their favorite puppy was going to be taken away. And yet in parts of the world, women are really, their lives are at stake if they're starting to cook. And it has to do with the fuel that they're using and the collection. What would be your message to those of us in the Global North who are working on climate change, but that sometimes forget the realities in the Global South? No, are you still here? Did we lose No? Let me check. No, he's here, but I don't think he is. Okay, we may have lost him. No, you're muted. No, you're muted. That's the problem. Let me see if I can get you. No, if you're with us, can you unmute? No, it's not being able to unmute. I will now sort of switch it again. For questions that came from the audience, one of the questions was for Kayla. And I think, Kayla, you talked a lot about high schools. And the question is, what happens once they graduate high school? So perhaps you can talk about the next step.
Yeah, so it's really cool that the Catholic Climate Covenant has decided to take the approach of having a youth program, and then we also have a young adult program, both very full active ministries. And so our goal is that all of the youth that I work with have a seamless transition into the young adult ministry through the covenant. And so through that, we offer various programs. We have a curriculum for young adults that encourages small groups to talk about eco-spirituality, civic engagement, and educational moments around Laudato Si. So that's one way. We also are developing a program called the Common Home Corps that I'm sure you'll be hearing more about if you follow the work that we do. But that's another way for for young adults to stay engaged through the Catholic Climate Covenant. And then, of course, PAS works with Care for Creation teams, and we have so many different ministries and resources through the covenant that once our students graduate, we hope that they feel so connected to us that they'll want to be involved in our other ministries as well once they age out of the youth ministry. Yeah, and then additionally, actually, the students who are seniors this year have asked us to provide some information on how they could choose a major in which that they could do this kind of work as they're thinking about what schools they're going to. And so we're actually going to host hopefully some webinars and just little side events for our students to just get more information on things that could help them as they're graduating high school and entering adulthood. And so after our summit this year, we're actually hoping to have a webinar on like choosing a career that is Laudato Si friendly and how to incorporate Laudato Si and whatever you might want to do as a career when you grow up. So those are just a couple of examples.
Great, Kayla. Thank you. And for those that are wondering, the covenant, we work mostly within the United States. It's a U.S. Catholic mobilization and organizing, but we're willing to talk to anybody about our resources, and you can probably take them and integrate them within your own national contexts and cultural contexts. Another question, I'm going to check again. Is No now able to get online and speak? Because you're still muted according to this. No. And I'm sorry that No's having technical issues. The question I would also want to put to Rick. Rick, a lot of folks asked again about how to get your newsletter. So if you could share that again. They were interested in that. And
I put it
Rick,
in the chat. I put it in the chat.
You did put it? Okay. In the United States, I know that Third Act has gotten together to organize those over 60. Is there some effort to do something like that within the interfaith context of organizing those over 60 in the similar fashion that the secular community is doing?
Well, I will tell you this about Third Act. I'm extensively involved with that organization in many, many multiple ways, and I don't want to even go into the details, but I will say that there is a faith group within Third Act, just as there's an educators group. I'm part of the educators group and a health workers and all. There's 25 or 30,000 people who are part of Third Act at this point. It's only been around for 1 year. If anything, it's grown too fast. So part of their problem, if I could put it that way, is just keeping up with the wave of interest, and there will be more. But for people who are interested, you can find out about it. Just go to Google on Third Act, and you can be guided to how to be connected. And there are subgroups, and the faith group is one of them. That does not preclude and should not preclude other groups like, in my case, Elders Climate Action or Gray is Green. I happen to be the chairman of the board of Gray is Green, the National Senior Conservation Corps. There are many groups around, and there should be many groups around. And I'm hopeful that the groups within the faith communities, both in with the Catholic world and in other denominations, other traditions, Jewish, Protestant, and Islamic, Buddhist, so forth, will continue their work. It's very important. We need more, not less.
Great. And I had no idea of Gray is Green. Educated. Thank you for enlightening me.
Okay.
And for a question about intergenerational work, because sometimes we do need our own groupings to do the organizing and getting trained. Where are places within the faith community where youth and young adults can tell their stories to the elders and vice versa, so that we're not working in silos all the time? Any ideas for intergenerational communication?
Yes. Well, that's definitely one thing we're hoping to start up in the Catholic Climate Covenant as well. And I also personally am part of a Franciscan group of individuals who are trying to tackle this question and how to incorporate Franciscan spirituality in a intergenerational way, bringing in more young people and focus primarily on climate action as well. So these conversations are happening, but I just learned this morning of a really cool way this is coming to fruition, and that's through our friends at the Franciscan Action Network. So they have what is it called? Paz, maybe you know, like circles.
Yes.
What do they call those?
The Franciscan circles.
Action circles.
Action
Yeah.
circles, yeah.
And so they've developed these circles all over the country. Well, in Wisconsin, there are 3 circles. One of them is older people. Another one is college students, and another one is at a high school. And so it just so happened that in this state, there are 3 groups of people who are interested, and they're all from different demographics. So in a couple of months, they're going to have an in-person gathering, bringing all of these people together to talk about Laudato Si in an intergenerational way. And they're also going to visit some environmental justice sites and unpack that experience as well. I think that's going to be in Milwaukee in March. So that's just one good example that our friends at the Franciscan Action Network are doing.
Excellent. Marilyn and Celine. Oh, Celine, did you have something to
I
say?
was going to say, I'd like to put a plug in for just doing things in your own family. And you know, I am a grandmother, and so it is the modeling that we do that our children and our grandchildren will be seeing, and also I'd like to push to support our local high schools efforts. I'm involved in a couple different things, and we'll have a high school group will be involved in that as well. And we make an attempt to say, you know, this is your voice, but we want to support you. Can we supply you with, and in other words, we might give some financial assistance or some kind of, material assistance for the high school groups to do what they want to do. And that gets us talking, and that helps. So there's a lot we can do just right now within our own homes and within our own communities.
Yeah, you're right. And the question that I had, I think sort of pivots from what you just said.
Yeah.
When you were moved to create the worksheets for the sector for individuals, families, couples, households, what was the underlying rationale? What propelled you to do it?
Would you like me to take that one? Or?
Yeah, take it away, Marilyn. Yeah.
Yeah. So our faith group in Chicago is filled with big hearts and people who do things, and some retired missionary priests and nuns and lay people, as well as people who are just attracted to the spirituality. But and they talk about Laudato Si and the environment, but the getting involved at the personal level within the household wasn't always, it didn't seem, it seemed like there could be some help there. And again, the Laudato Si Action Platform, which is amazing, and you know, God bless the Vatican, I'm sure he does, but for putting that out there. But we just wanted to make it something more accessible to people who might not spend all their time online, and to sit and talk through different actions. How do you respond to the cry of the earth? How do you respond to ecological economics, which Kayla and her colleagues helped us find succinct steps that we can take at individual level, and then we discuss those in a group. So that might have over-answered your question, or that might have answered your question.
That was great. And we've got about 10 minutes left. Is there any final thoughts that you'd like to share before we close? I'm always, when I do webinars as a presenter, sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I had had the chance to bring this up. This is your chance.
The one thing I'd like to add is that the Laudato Si is a 7-year journey, and to not get discouraged and think, oh, this is just too much. It's baby steps. It's starting small, making plans, and then adapt it. So it's a 7-year journey. We start now, but and we're going to fumble and we're going to take some steps back, but we're going to do everything we can to move forward. 7 years.
Selena's right. 1 foot up, 1 foot down. That's the way to London town.
Yeah,
I like Rick's little one-liners.
yeah.
Really appreciated the intergenerational conversations also, because a lot of times when we might bring some, especially when you go to zero waste suggestions, you find out that people who are a generation or two older than you grew up. For example, a friend said that her parents taught her when she unwrapped the quarter of butter or margarine, she saved that paper, she put it in a little container in the refrigerator, and then the next time she greased her pan for a cake, she used that instead of getting out the spray can of Pam or whatever. And it's a mindset to not throw anything away without using it until it's gone. So the generation that, the last 20 or 30 years, we're just so spoiled on Ziploc and Saran wrap and all these things, styrofoam, that has just really, what did they do before all that? Well, they managed, and they managed pretty well. So intergenerationally, it's been really it's been an education.
And I'm going to add that what we also need to do besides intergenerational is intercultural. If you were to listen to Latino immigrant community and how everybody's grandma has always recycled, and buying secondhand is like, well, no, because we pass clothes down from family to family. So there's a lot of wisdom that we should also be picking up from our immigrant neighbors and other cultures.
Tiene razón, tiene razón.
Gracias. Anything else you'd like to add? And I'm still hoping that Nyo's able to mute.
Yeah, I could just add a little bit. So the inspiration to create a space for youth to take leadership actually came from an experience I had at one of a protest that was inspired by Greta's movement. And in September 2019, I went to protest in Chicago, and I actually took a group of Montessori elementary students with me, and they were so excited to be there, got a lot of energy from it, cared very deeply about the climate crisis. But we also attended a prayer service that the Archdiocese actually was hosting before the protest, an eco-spiritual prayer service. And the students were very engaged in that too. So I was just really moved by that. These young kids, were just there for all of it, including the faith part of it. And so I just wanted to make sure we created a space that they could live out their faith and care for the earth on a more regular basis. But all that's to say is that I had that idea and then just did nothing with it for several years. And then I met another young adult who was working at a Catholic high school at the time, and just kind of shared that idea of a youth program with him. And he got he was all in, so excited, very encouraging. And that was the extra push I needed to write grants for the program and actually write the program out, and then that we were able to start it within that year. And so I don't know, hopefully that's just an encouraging story of just gotta go and find your people and find the people who are also passionate and willing to do some work, and then we could just do great things together.
Amen, Kayla. I love that. I always tell folks that are getting discouraged, don't find your people, and you will be able to get lots of things done. Could
I just say one thing? Pause.
Sure.
I think that Kayla just mentioned Greta, and we know that Greta does not come from a religious background, although maybe you have seen her interactions with the Dalai Lama or Pope Francis. And I just mention that because I think we have talked a lot about what Catholicism is doing, and that's wonderful. But as Rick pointed out in the beginning, all faith traditions have this deep connection to God and his creation. And beyond that, it's so important for us to reach out to everybody, to be willing to partner with Mothers Out Front or any organization. It's so important not to stay in our parochial context, because this is about our global family.
Yes, you are absolutely true. And there are similar organizations to the covenant that from other faiths. So you should go out there and look for them. You have the National Religious Partnership for the Environment. You have the Coalition on Environment and Jewish Life. You've got Green Muslims. You've got Creation Justice Ministries, which is the Protestant and historical Black churches and Orthodox coming together to work on those issues. I have 155. I do not see many questions coming in. One last chance for Noah, if he's here, to be able to come and say something. No, he's not here. So at this point, I am going to close us out. Thank you to the panelists for your wisdom and your truth-telling and your stories, to Marita for invitation and for Global Ministries University for having us. One last mention for those who are getting discouraged. I started this work, probably I was the first time I made those connections between what was happening then in the 80s was the nuclear issues that we were having marches about during that time, the McDonald's boycotts because of beef. So I was probably college age, maybe late high school, and then moved all the way now till I'm the elder that I am still working on this. Sometimes my children go, Mom, you've been working on this for 40 years. Don't you get discouraged and kind of like, And I'm like, no, I do not. That is not an option to feel despair or discouragement. And in fact, the kind of work that I do has always brought me immense joy, because I've been able to meet people that are doing this kind of work, and that they are the salt of the earth type of folks that are truly, truly the saints that are working at the grassroots level to get these things done. And there was a quote that I remembered from Pope Francis, it's in Laudato Si, and I may get some of the words wrong, but in every single one of your presentations today, I heard this quote come out. And what Pope Francis said was that in union with all creatures, we journey through this land always seeking God. Let us sing as we go. May our struggles and our concern for this planet never take away the joy of our hope. And every single one of you, when you spoke about the joy of your hope. And I am thankful to you for bringing that up. Thank you, everybody. Let us continue singing.
Thank you.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Thank you, everyone. So nice to
Bye-bye.
meet you.